Hi, I'm Ameera Shah, Mama of Karma, I to my employees. I'm absolutely obsessed with the reputation of Metropolis. Impact, all about impact. जो भी करते ना हम अच्छा करते हैं.
Ameera, how does one become a true leader of people?
It's all about whether people relate to you, identify with what your dream is, where you want to go, what you want to do. And I think if you can build that human connection, I think you can be a leader. That human connection can't be forced. It has to be natural, it has to be true to who you are. But I honestly think that's all it takes.
Ameera, are there any general misconceptions about leadership that you'd like to clarify?
Leaders sometimes feel that all leaders must know everything. And I think that's definitely a miss. I think any leader who can't say, I don't know, I need to figure it out, is not being true.
What do you feel is the ideal role of a promoter or a founder in promoter-led companies?
For Metropolis, I can say what we look for our CEO to do at this point is to turbocharge sort of thing. But when you allow lots of new people to come in, either from the organization or from outside, to come in and influence an organization, the biggest worry should be that do you land up losing the soul of the organization? And I feel my job at this point is to make sure the values, the philosophy, culture, the soul remains intact.
And double-clicking on that question, what would be your advice to a CEO coming into a promoter-led family business?
Whether you're in the same industry or a different industry, whether you've had amazing experience or not, I think the important thing is that you come into any new situation with humility to first understand the good things about the history, good things about the organization, then start to say that, hey, what are the things I need to change? I think the second thing is about recognizing the value that each person brings to the table, recognizing the value the founder, the promoter brings, the CEO brings, the team brings, and how do you sort of keep that in a beautiful balance and not feel like you need to be the single star, but you need to be part of a team of stars.
Ameera, what's the most common piece of career advice that you've heard of but disagree with?
A path to success for everybody. The Indian road is you excel at your academics, you go to an IIT, IIM, then you get into a fancy job, then and suddenly you're at an epiphany, you're at happiness, and that's just not true. And I think it's about finding your own path and finding your own road. The second I would say is, especially for women, there's a lot of feedback given about finding mentors. And I think it's important to look outside and to find people that you resonate with who can help you. But it's equally important to look inside. And I think both of the things I'm just talking about are actually about doing introspection to find out what's your path, what works for you. And while you're looking for people to guide you, but listening to your own gut, your own voice.
Ameera, what are 3 ways in which you feel women can navigate power structures today?
As an entrepreneur, honestly, I've never chosen to navigate power structure. When you're in a corporate, I guess it's a slightly different situation where you don't have a choice. You could be out of a job if you don't navigate them. But I think the 2-3 things that I think I did that worked a little bit for me was to really pick the battles that I wanted to fight and pick the messages I wanted to send. So very early days, I remember I would dress in a way that I knew would make other people feel comfortable. And that actually in some ways goes against who I am, which is I want to do what I want to do. And, I'm not going to do something to please somebody. But that was not a battle worth fighting for at that point, right? I think it's about picking your battles and about saying that, look, I want to be the strong, determined person that I am and be able to communicate my message in a gentle, kind, hopeful way. I think the second one is about not being too quick to pass judgment early on. So before you read the room, before you sort of understand where people's positions are, what their people's agendas are, to sort of keep your cards a little bit close to your chest and not land up being too vulnerable and too open from day one. And once you've read the room, then you can go about and then pick where you want to be opinionated, where you want to be judgmental about certain things. And finally, when I found that certain men just didn't want to give up their power structures or weren't willing to be flexible about them, I just hit bang on. And that worked for me.
Ameera, what would be 2 misconceptions about women in leadership roles that you would like to clarify?
Professional women, once they reach the top, land up getting their due, right? Because it's always assumed that they've gotten there on their own. And I think that's fair. We, of course, don't have enough of them. We still struggle as a society with having enough women in leadership positions. But women as entrepreneurs or women as promoters don't always get their fair due. One, because I think there's a lack of recognition about how the path is very different, a corporate moving up the ladder and an entrepreneurial role. And second, everybody in the world, in the community, is looking to find why they didn't do it on their own. People will take sons of family businesses and paint them as these amazing industrialists and entrepreneurs who've built everything. But for the same thing, for women, will be always sort of painted as a family accomplishment, or it'll be painted as a something that they've not done on their own, right? I mean, everybody gets helped in their life, right? But you've still done it on your own. And I think women also push this idea forward. While we so-called balance everything, we struggle between the balance of work and life and that classic question mark, that it's something that is very, very difficult for all of us to navigate, and that it's just not possible to, like we said, have it all, and not possible to do it all, and you always have to make choices. But this idea that it's so difficult to be a powerful business person or successful leader, and to be able to have a family, and to be able to have personal hobbies, and to be able to do other things, I think it's very doable. If you have the right support system, it's very doable. Is it doable for everybody? No, because not everybody has the resources, not everybody has the support system. But if our quest is to get there, then I think it's doable.
Ameera, how do you suggest women in early leadership roles handle the guilt that sometimes comes to meet demands from home, family, and work?
See, firstly, this word guilt is a tough one. I don't see it as a completely negative thing. Where does guilt come from, right? It comes from the fact there's two voices. One voice in your head is saying, I should be doing this. And another voice is saying, I want to be doing this. And the gap between them is the guilt. Women in India, as we know, grow up believing an ecosystem telling them that you should be at home taking care of your child and your family and your this and your that. Even if you're an amazing leader in something, that's not enough, because unless you're an amazing mom and unless you're an amazing wife and an amazing daughter-in-law and etc., you will never be enough. Right? Men, I see, don't suffer from that much guilt at all, right? Because the idea of what they should be doing, they're actually doing exactly that. They should be, earning the bread. They should be working. And as long as they're doing that, there's no gap and there's no dissonance in their reality. As women, we land up working incredibly hard at both parts of our lives. And my only point is there's no perfection, and you got to pick again your battles. At the same time, I don't need to prove to anybody that I can work 15 hours a day. It's about finding what's your balance, right?
In today's day of big data, how does instinct play a role while dealing with people, and how do you develop better instinct as a leader?
People decisions are not always analytical. It's about being able to read the room and look at somebody's body language, assess how comfortable or uncomfortable they are. Trusting what's right for you, what's not. Sometimes there are deals or offers on the table which are super tempting and you don't want to give it up. Do you have the ability to hear your inner voice about what's right for you? It takes a long time of harnessing your voice and trusting it before you actually start to trust it completely and you call it instinct. Often, again, I think in India, our families try to usually tell us what to think, right? The idea of individual thought is not encouraged that much, especially in children. And that actually what it does is it doesn't allow you to learn to trust your own voice. So over the years, we grew up not having an instinct. And then somebody tells you, what's your instinct? And you're like, what are you talking about? I can hear my father's voice in my head. I can hear my mother's voice in my head. I can't really hear my own instinct. I don't even know what that is. And over time, if you put those other shoes aside and you step into your own shoes, you start to hear it.
Ameera, do you think the younger generation of leaders today in India are exporting something to the world on leadership?
Currently still, and I'm not talking about sort of the tech club, I'm saying in general, it's still very differential. It's still very hierarchical. The West is in a very different place when it comes to that. Indian leadership is a lot about integrating in some way your personal beliefs into the organizational beliefs, because there is a commonality. For example, it's not uncommon to do a puja when you open a new office, right? It's not often in the West you're going to see people all going to church together when you're opening a new office. So I find actually the leadership style is quite different. We tend to be very diplomatic in India, very careful about our words. They're very blunt over there and very direct and straightforward over there. So I think it's still quite different. I'm not really seeing too much of commonality or anything specific that we are exporting. 3
words that describe your leadership style.
Nurturing, decisive, situationally authentic.
Ameera's leadership style in 2001 to 2010 days of Metropolis versus today. What's changed?
A lot. When I came back in 2001, I was very much in the US style of leadership, very blunt, very straightforward, very direct. I've learned to nuance it a little bit more and not be in a rush to put things too black and white.
Ameera, what's the one thing you wished you knew more of about leading people?
I wish I'd had a chance to watch great leaders in action. That I like watching and learning from experience. But I came back when I was 20 and I started building when I was 21, and I didn't really have lots of live examples around me of learning from others. So I think what I've landed up learning, one, you always want to surround yourself with people smarter and better than you. And second, you want to connect with them on a purpose that's larger than just the job.
The 3 most important decisions you took as a leader after becoming MD of Metropolis.
I landed up acquiring a significant amount of shares in Metropolis while taking some debt. It was a very ballsy decision at the time, and it took me 5 years to pay back all that money with crazy amounts of interest and all of that. But I'm very proud of that because I was wrecked with self-doubt when I was doing it. But I still followed my instinct, came out, worked very hard, planned in detail, came out on the other side, successful having done it. The second was making the decision to hire a really good CEO. My skills and a good CEO skills can be very complementary. And I think that does wonders for the organization. And third, I would say, is building a really good quality board. In the absence of having people I've grown up watching or learning from, having good independent directors on the board has really, I've learned a lot from. And I've also sat on other people's boards as an independent director, and that's given me the chance to learn from other leaders, how they run their boards. And I've brought all those practices back to mine.
Ameera, what's been the most significant failure that has taught you something more about human beings or people?
At some point in my career, I started facing conflicts in certain relationships. I thought of it as a failure because I always believe conflict is created by two sides. It's easy to blame externally, but you've got to look within. And when I sat down to think what I was doing to exacerbate that conflict or to contribute to it in some way, I had to find the courage to face parts of me which I didn't like. And then, of course, it was up to me to then start to fix those and hopefully not repeat those mistakes.
What are the 3 most important things that form part of your daily routine as the leader of Metropolis?
I'm absolutely obsessed with the reputation of Metropolis, and that's the most important thing to me, that we continue to stand for being very respected in what we do, and therefore any customer feedback / complaint / suggestion or thought is very important to me. I will certainly do whatever I need to do on a daily basis to make sure that the soul of the organization, from a quality, from a customer satisfaction perspective, is maintained daily. Second of all, I definitely will connect with some senior leaders in the organization. It could be just a call, it could be a lunch meeting, it could be just 10 minutes on the side, a chat. And third, just a dashboard to get sort of all the overall view of everything that's going on.
2 things that you relate or value most about the Metropolis culture, and what are 2 things that you'd infuse more of in the Metropolis culture?
I'm very proud of the fact that we stand for the highest level of credibility and respect. And that's really important because, especially being in healthcare, I always tell my team every sample is considered like your mother's sample, right? And that's the level of attention, thought, compassion that needs to go into it. I would say the second thing is that we're an organization that likes to do the right thing. We want to do what's right. That's just fundamentally in our DNA. And you'll get that across the levels. Actually, when my new CEO joined in January, and he spent 2 months, traveling across the country and meeting people. But he said, I was amazed. At every level, everybody said, at Metropolis, we feel very proud because hum jo bhi karte na, hum acha karte. So that was a very strong part. I would say the 2 things that I'm seeing him infuse, which I think were certainly we needed and we wanted, was a more performance-driven culture. I had built Metropolis as a family, as a the whole nurturing thing, and I told you the flip side of it is too patient. I think the second thing is, we were always considered the most innovative and the most pioneering. And I think in the last few years, somewhere we had lost our edge there, and I think we're bringing that back.
If Ameera could take one significant risk today in business, what would it be and why?
I would say a serious consolidation play because I think a lot of value creation can be done by building scale in this industry. Brand, credibility, trust, the most important gates in this industry. And it's very difficult for new players to come in and build that in any serious way.
And who would be 2 to 3 leaders or mentors that have had a profound impact on your leadership style?
Deepak Parekh is somebody who I always talk about his humility. It's incredible. His stature of life, he's just so grounded. It's unbelievable. Uday Kotak for incredible focus and incredible ability to chase after what he wants. Kiran Mazumdar for just the enormous amount of courage the woman has. Zia for her warmth. She's the most warm human being ever. She envelopes you like a bear. And I would say one person who I'm currently super inspired by is Ashish Dhawan. Just love the pivot he's done in his life and what he's building and the incredible impact that he's making on the country.
Ameera, if you were to pick a dream team today, who would it be and why?
Brené Brown. It's all about tweaking our own minds. Bill Gates, incredible pivot in life, change of chapter to philanthropy. Elon, from his incredible long-term vision.
Is there a woman leader in a different space who you've been looking up to recently?
I was very impressed with the Prime Minister of New Zealand, and when the way she navigated the COVID crisis, the way she stood so tall as a very compassionate, empathetic leader. If theoretically I had been in a similar position, how I may have dealt with a crisis or how I would have hoped to lead with such a crisis. I felt there was a touch of kindness and a lot of humanity in it.
Can you share any practical examples or lived examples of empathy in your leadership?
COVID had just hit. It was quite a crazy time for me because my child had been born 10-15 days before the lockdown. I was very much in the mode of my imagined maternity leave. Stayed only for the 3 days that I was in the hospital, and then I had to get to work because of COVID. I saw my team come to life during COVID in the way of, leave behind all anxieties, worries with their families, about them dying, about them getting sick, and coming to work for a larger purpose, of taking care of the country's health. That was really inspirational. So my thought always was, look, how do I show them I love them and I care for them beyond the stuff the organization is doing? So I took my compensation for that 6 months and I sort of gave it back to all the team members who were on the front line. And sort of putting their lives at risk every day, while that gave me the privilege of being nestled safely away with my child.
If Ameera could trade places with anyone in any industry right now, who would it be and why?
I would probably say Uday. He's done with his first chapter, it seems. Hopefully there's a second chapter coming. And I think with the position and platform that he has, with how incredibly smart he is and the position and access he has, he could do wonders for the country.
Ameera, if you were in my seat and had an option to put anyone in your seat, who would it be and what would you ask them?
Probably Gandhiji. And probably go back and sort of talk about what he imagined the fabric of India to be and whether we're close to it and how we can really protect it.
What's the end goal for Ameera Shah and what is inspiring you to come to work every day?
I think different things have inspired me at different times, but today what's inspiring me is, like I said, impact, where I can be the most useful version of myself for my country.
A leader must always dash.
Do what they say and say what they mean.
A leader should never dash.
Let their ego become bigger than themselves.
One standout trait that will always get you a job with Ameera Shah.
Being very proactive and working very hard.
One personality trait of yours that gets in the way the most.
Being extremely direct.
One thing you wish you knew more about people.
How fragile egos are.
When in doubt, Ameera Shah dash.
Looks inward.
Besides her family, Ameera's most prized possession is?
My chess.
Your favorite workday time waster?
Chess.
Performance or potential, what do you bet on more?
Potential.
Data or instinct?
Instinct.
One thing that's been on your personal to-do list for the longest time?
Start reading.
Who would play Ameera Shah in your biopic?
I don't know why, but the name Smita Patil comes to mind. She's dead, so that's not really going to help, but...
The soundtrack to your life will be?
Patience by Guns N' Roses.
Ameera's favorite getaway destination?
Honestly, anywhere with my loved ones.
Dinner with Bill Gates on the future of healthcare or tennis lessons with Roger Federer?
Dinner with Roger Federer.
Your non-traditional career wish list for Karma?
I don't have a career wish list for him. He can do what he wants.
Life after Metropolis would look like?
Making big impact through philanthropy.
The women's reservation bill in one sentence?
Necessary evil.
If you had a gigantic billboard out there, what is the message you would put out to millions and why?
Courage is not the absence of fear, but it is the ability to overcome it.
Superb. I think with that, we're done.
Okay, good.
Ameera, what's your take on Qunba?
Platforms like this are super important because we've got lots of wisdom in India, lots of experience in India that we can bring together, and it can really be a tool for the next generation to hopefully learn from or scoff at, whichever they choose to. But either way, it's an opportunity for those of us to be able to share some of the experiences and hope that it's useful to somebody else as it was to us. Every time we stand and sit, that'll happen. Oh God, that's tough.